It was 9:17 p.m. at L'Étoile d'Or, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Billionaire CEO Johnny Vance was arguing over a $50 million deal in the private dining room. His waitress, Maya, was just trying to get through her double shift. 5 minutes later, Vance's 2 bodyguards were dead, and 5 professional killers had sealed the room. They came for the billionaire. They had guns, a plan, and military precision. They just made one mistake. They didn't notice the waitress. The air in L'Étoile d'Or wasn't just air. It was a carefully curated atmosphere. It smelled of old money, truffled butter, and the faintest sweet tang of 500-a-bottle Chateau Margaux. For Maya alone, it smelled like a trap. She had been working here for 11 months. 11 months of saying, "Certainly, sir," of balancing trays of delicate, overpriced food, and of smiling until her cheeks ached. It was the most boring, most normal, most agonizing job she'd ever had. It was perfect. Maya was a ghost, and this restaurant was her graveyard. She was hiding in plain sight, a woman who used to diffuse geopolitical incidents, now debating the merits of Cabernet versus Pinot with men who thought asset allocation was a high-stakes conflict. Tonight, the prize pig was Johnny Vance. Vance was the kind of man who didn't just enter a room, he conquered it. As the CEO of Astra Dynamics, he was the new face of technology, part tech messiah, part defense contractor hawk. He was young, arrogant, and radiated an impatience that made the restaurant's manager, a fussy man named Pierre, visibly sweat. Vance was dining in the solarium, a private glass-walled room on the 3rd floor overlooking the city lights. He wasn't alone. He had his 2 Ares security bodyguards and his chief operating officer, Sarah Jenkins. Maya watched them. It was a habit she couldn't break. The first guard, Ares 1, was sloppy. He stood just outside the solarium door, his suit jacket bunched behind his hip, revealing the hard black outline of a Glock 19. He was too obvious. His eyes kept flicking to his phone. The second guard, Ares 2, was inside, standing by the window. He was better, trying to blend in, but he was fixated on Vance, not the room. He wasn't watching the service entrance. He wasn't watching the elevators. He wasn't watching the waitress. Maya moved through the dining room with practiced, silent efficiency. She refilled Vance's water, her hand steady, her eyes downcast. But she was listening. "Absolutely not, Sarah," Vance hissed, his voice a low thrum of anger. He wasn't eating his $200 Wagyu steak. "We do not sell the Janus prototype to Vanguard Capital. They're rivals, not partners. That's final." Sarah Jenkins, a sharp woman in a severe grey suit, pushed her glasses up her nose. "Johnny, with respect, Vanguard isn't the threat. The leak is the threat. Someone on the board is shopping Janus. If we don't control the sale, it goes to the black market. Selling to Vanguard, even at a loss, at least contains it." "No, I'll handle the leak." Vance threw his napkin down. "This meeting is over." Maya noted the tension. Vance's arrogance was a liability. Sarah's pragmatism was bordering on desperation. The 2 guards were focused on the argument, not the environment. Amateurs, Maya thought as she turned to leave the room. She stepped out into the main hallway, her tray held high. She passed the elevator bank just as the doors dinged open. 5 men stepped out. They were not guests. They didn't wear the bespoke suits of the restaurant's clientele. They wore matching, dark grey work uniforms, like a high-end cleaning crew or technicians. But their movements were wrong. They moved with a predatory, synchronized grace. They didn't look at the decor. They scanned the exits, the cameras, the staff. The man in the lead, tall with cold, pale eyes, glanced at Maya. His eyes slid over her. Waitress, white apron, name tag, Anna, tray of empty glasses. Insignificant. He gave a small, almost invisible hand signal to the others. Maya's heart didn't pound, it didn't race. Instead, a cold, familiar click settled into place, like a piece of machinery locking. The Waitress fog that had clouded her mind for 11 months evaporated. She was no longer Maya Alon, the Waitress. She was Kestrel. She continued walking toward the kitchen, her pace unchanged. She didn't run, she didn't scream. She entered the kitchen, set her tray down, and spoke calmly to the dishwasher. "Marco, take your break. Now, go out the back." "What? Go." Her voice was no longer soft. It was iron. Marco, startled, just nodded and fled. Maya turned to the heavy, stainless steel door that led to the service corridor. She didn't lock it. She braced a heavy-duty mop bucket full of water against it, creating a spill just inside the threshold. Then she walked to the butcher's block. She ignored the large cleavers. Too brutal. Too slow. Her fingers wrapped around the smooth, weighted handle of an 8-inch, razor-sharp Wüsthof chef's knife. In the dining room, she heard the click, click, click of the main lights shutting off, followed by the high-pitched whine of a signal jammer activating. The screaming started a second later. The darkness that hit the dining room was absolute. L'Étoile d'Or's ambiance was built on soft, specific lighting, not emergency backups. The only light came from the city skyline, filtering weakly through the massive windows. Panic was immediate. High-pitched, expensive screams, the sound of a chair crashing over, a woman yelling, "Arthur!" Then, a new sound cut through the chaos. Thwip, thwip. 2 soft, wet coughs, silenced. In the solarium, Ares II, the bodyguard by the window, crumpled to the ground, a dark flower blooming on his white shirt. Ares I, in the hallway, didn't even have time to draw his weapon before a second round hit him in the throat. He gurgled and fell. Johnny Vance shouted, "What the hell?" The solarium door burst open. The 5 men fanned out, not with the clumsy rush of robbers, but with the fluid, triangular formation of an entry team. One man, the leader with the pale eyes, stepped into the center. He was holding a silenced Heckler & Koch MP7. He wasn't wearing a mask. He didn't need one. He radiated an authority that was more terrifying than any disguise. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice was calm, with a faint Eastern European accent. "Please remain in your seats. This is not a robbery. This is a private transaction." He pointed the barrel of his weapon directly at Johnny Vance. "Mr. Vance, we have a reservation. My name is Cale. We are here for the Janus key. Please place it on the table." Vance, to his credit, found his bravado. "I don't know what you're talking about." Cale sighed. "Please. I have studied you. You are arrogant, but not stupid. You are attending a meeting to discuss a security leak of your most valuable prototype. You would not come to that meeting without the leverage. The prototype is biometric. The key is you. Or rather, Kyle's thin smile was chilling, a part of you. Your right thumb, to be precise. You can give us the drive, and we will take the thumb. Or you can refuse, and we will take the thumb from your corpse and find the drive. Your choice defines the next 30 seconds. Sarah Jenkins, the COO, was rigid with terror. "Johnny, just give it to them." "Shut up, Sarah," Vance snapped, his eyes darting between Cale and his remaining 4 men. They were blocking the only exit. Kyle tilted his head. 20 seconds. He raised his hand, and 2 of his men stepped forward, grabbing Sarah from her chair. One held her by the hair, the other pressed a pistol to her temple. 10 seconds, Kyle said, his voice bored. Vance's face went white. The arrogance crumbled. Okay, stop. He slowly reached into his jacket. He pulled out a small metallic object, no bigger than a car key fob. It was sleek, black, and had a single recessed biometric scanner. "The Janus key," Vance said, his voice shaking. "It contains the entire source code. It's useless without my print." "We are aware," Kyle said. "Place it on the table." Vance did. Kyle nodded to one of his men, who moved forward with a sterile silver kit. It looked like something a surgeon would carry. The man opened it, revealing not medical tools, but a high-speed data cloning device and a heavy-duty digital thumb cuff. "Now your hand, Mr. Vance," Kyle ordered. As Vance slowly, hesitantly, reached out, the door to the kitchen burst open. It wasn't a charge. It was a blur. Maya, Anna the waitress, exploded into the room. She wasn't holding the Wusthof knife like a weapon. She was holding it like a tool. The man nearest the door was Attacker 1. He was turning, raising his rifle, but he was a fraction of a second too late. Maya didn't go for his gun. She didn't go for his chest. She drove the heavy, rubber-soled sole of her service shoe into his knee. The joint hyperextended with a sickening, wet pop. As he screamed and buckled, she wasn't waiting. She used his falling body as a pivot. The Wusthof knife flashed in a tight, precise reverse grip. She didn't stab, she slashed, a single surgical cut across the bundle of nerves and tendons on the inside of his wrist. His hand went numb. His rifle clattered to the floor. 1. Attacker 2 was already turning, leveling his MP7. Maya grabbed a heavy silver wine bucket from a stand and hurled it. It wasn't aimed at his head. It was aimed at his chest. The heavy clang of metal on body armor was just a distraction. As he flinched, she was already moving, low and fast. She scooped up the fallen rifle. She didn't shoot. The click of the safety disengaging was the only sound she made. Kyle, the leader, reacted with terrifying speed. He shoved Sarah Jenkins to the floor and raised his own weapon, firing a 3-round burst. Pop, pop, pop. But Maya was already gone. She had used her momentum to roll behind the grand mahogany bar that dominated one side of the room. The bullets chewed through bottles of expensive scotch, sending glass and amber liquid spraying everywhere. The restaurant was silent for one stunned second. Then Cole spoke, his voice no longer calm, but laced with a sudden, venomous shock. "Well," he breathed, a look of stunned, almost delighted recognition on his face. "I'll be damned." He looked past the bar, into the shadows. "It's been a long time, Kestrel." In the kitchen, the air was thick with the smell of garlic and terror. Maya didn't bother processing Cale's words. Recognition was a liability. She had grabbed Vance, not Sarah. Sarah was frozen, a liability. Vance was the target, the asset. Her training took over, a cold, clean algorithm. Protect the asset, neutralize the threat, find the exit. "Move!" she had barked at Vance, yanking him from his chair while Kyle was still processing her attack. She hadn't run out. She had run in. Deeper into the restaurant. She dragged the shell-shocked billionaire through the kitchen's double-swinging doors into the stainless steel heart of L'Etoile d'Or. "What? Who?" Vance stammered, tripping over a floor mat. "Quiet!" Maya snapped. Her voice was unrecognizable. The soft, accommodating lilt of Anna was gone, replaced by a clipped, abrasive command. She pulled him past the prep stations, past the roaring grill. The kitchen staff were cowering in a pantry, their eyes wide. "They're coming," Vance whispered, panicked. "I know." Maya didn't stop. She shoved him toward the back of the kitchen. In there was the walk-in wine cellar. Not the fancy glass and mahogany display for the guests, but the working cellar. A cold, dark, windowless room, insulated, with a single, heavy, lockable door. She pushed him inside, among the racks of Veuve Clicquot and Opus 1, and followed him in. She clicked the heavy steel handle, locking it from the inside. Darkness. Cold. The smell of dust and fermenting grapes. Vance was hyperventilating, his breaths short, wet gasps. My security. They're dead. They just shot them. Who are you? Maya ignored him. She pressed her ear to the thick, insulated door, listening. She could hear them out in the kitchen. Shouts, the sound of Kyle barking orders in Russian, not English, a language of command. Dvia po flangam. Chisto. 2 on the flanks. Clear. They were sweeping the kitchen. Professionally. Who are you? Vance demanded, his voice rising in hysteria. Maya turned, her silhouette a black void against the darker void of the room. I'm the person you're going to listen to if you want to see tomorrow. You were my waitress. I was. You moved. I've never seen anyone. You took out his man. He was sloppy, Maya said, her voice flat. He exposed his knee. I disarmed the second. Disarmed? Vance's laugh was half sob. You were... It was like... Focus, Maya cut him off. They're here for you. Why? The Janus key, Vance breathed, his hand instinctively going to his jacket pocket, where the key wasn't. They left it on the table, thank God. They didn't leave it, Maya said, her mind racing. They were interrupted. They'll be back for it. And for you. They need your thumb to make it work. They won't kill you. Not yet. But they'll take you. We're locked in. They can't get in, right? Vance said, grasping for hope. Maya almost laughed. This is a commercial refrigerator door. They'll have it open in 30 seconds. This isn't a safe room. This is a kill box. The sound of boots on the kitchen tile stopped just outside the door. A heavy thud as someone tested the handle. Unas des. She's in here. Then a new voice. Kyle's. It was muffled by the door, but the malice was clear. Maya Alon. Unit 8200, call sign Kestrel. You always did prefer the dark. Vance looked at Maya, his face a mask of confusion. Unit 8, what is that? Is that military? Israeli intelligence, Maya whispered, her eyes fixed on the door. He knows me. Kyle, she called out, testing. It's been a long time. You look well. A dry, mirthless laugh from the other side. I'm no longer Kyle, Malenkaya Ptichka. That man died in Tehran, thanks to you. Tehran. The word hit Maya like a physical blow, a mission, a fire, a betrayal. The intel was good, Maya said, her voice hardening. The intel was a lie, Kyle roared, and a heavy boot crashed against the door, making the steel vibrate. You led us into a trap! You and him! Him who? Maya said, playing for time, her mind scanning the room. Racks, bottles, a CO2 tank for the soda guns. Him! Kyle shouted. The man you're protecting! Johnny Vance! Maya's blood went cold. She turned to look at Vance. The billionaire wasn't just scared anymore. He looked guilty. What is he talking about? Maya asked Vance, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. I have no idea, Vance lied. Stop lying, Maya snarled, grabbing the front of his $5,000 suit. What was in Tehran? It was a proof-of-concept test, Vance admitted, caving under her gaze. For astrodynamics, before I was CEO. We sold a new targeting autonomous drone system, the Scythe program. Scythe, Maya breathed. Kyle's team. They were an assassination unit. Operation Scythe. The buyers, Kyle's voice came through the door, were the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They told us it was a terrorist cell. But your Scythe system, Mr. Vance, it didn't just target the cell. It targeted us, the recovery team, her team. A sudden intense grinding sound started at the lock, a high-speed drill. He used us, Maya realized, the horror dawning. He sold the tech to the Iranians and used my team as a demo. A sales pitch. Kyle's voice dripped with hatred. And you, Kestrel, you were the one who gave the all clear. You were the one who walked away. The drill punched through. I didn't know, Maya whispered. Not to Kale, not to Vance, but to the ghosts in the room. He's not just a target, Kyle said. He's the reason. I'm not here to kidnap him, Maya. I'm here to execute him. And now, I get to execute you too. The lock mechanism snapped. Maya looked at the door, at Vance, at the heavy, pressurized CO2 tank in the corner. Hold your breath, she ordered Vance. The door flew open. Kyle stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright kitchen lights. Behind him, 3 of his men fanned out, weapons raised. Attacker 2, the one she'd hit with the wine bucket, and 2 others she hadn't engaged. Attacker 1, with the bad knee, was nowhere to be seen. 4, including Kyle. Nowhere to run, Maya, Kyle said, stepping into the cellar. Maya didn't run. She acted. She had the Wusthof knife in her left hand. With her right, she grabbed the main valve on the CO2 tank and wrenched it open. A deafening Schoss SSS erupted as a massive, white cloud of freezing, pressurized carbon dioxide blasted into the room. The temperature plummeted from a chilly 55 degrees to sub-zero in an instant. Glazer! Eyes! One of the men screamed as the cloud hit him. It was a suffocating, blinding fog. CO2 is heavier than air. It displaces oxygen. It burns exposed skin with instant frostbite. Kyle and his men recoiled, firing blind into the white mist. Bullets ricocheted off the metal wine racks, shattering bottles. Expensive red wine and glass shards sprayed through the air. But Maya was already moving. She had trained in this. Chemical environments. Zero visibility. She held her breath low to the ground, where the oxygen remained for a precious few seconds. Vance was cowering, choking. She grabbed him by the collar and dragged him, using the CO2 cloud as cover. Out! Now! They burst out of the cellar, gasping for the warm, humid air of the kitchen. Maya didn't stop. She slammed the heavy cellar door shut, trapping Kyle and his men inside the suffocating, freezing cloud. Are they? Vance gasped, leaning against a steel counter. They're not dead, Maya said, scanning the kitchen. Just delayed. She heard a muffled thump-thump from inside the cellar. They were trying to shoot the handle off. We have to go. Where is the main security office? Downstairs, by the lobby, Vance panted. But they cut the power. The elevators are dead. The stairs, then. Maya grabbed him and pulled him toward the service corridor, the one where she'd left the mop bucket. As they burst through the door, they found Attacker 1 on the ground. He was propped against the wall, his face pale with pain, his shattered knee elevated on a crate. He was holding a pistol in his good hand. He raised it. Stoy! Stop! Vance screamed and cowered. Maya shoved Vance behind her. She still had the MP7 she'd taken from the first guard. She hadn't used it. She didn't want the noise. Now, she had no choice. She raised the rifle. The man on the floor looked at her. His face was slick with sweat. He wasn't a monster. He was just a soldier. He looked at her, then at the rifle, then back at her. He had a clear shot. She had a clear shot. He saw her eyes. He saw the kestrel. And slowly he lowered his pistol. "On Predatel," the man whispered in pained Russian. "He sold us all. Kyle. Kyle lost his wife in that fire. Vance's fire." "I know," Maya said, her own voice thick. "Then why?" "He's my asset," Maya said simply. It was the only answer her training would allow. She didn't shoot him. She stepped past him and pulled Vance toward the service stairs. "Wait," Vance said, his voice strange. He looked back at the wounded man. You're just leaving him?" "He's not a threat," Maya said, her grip on his arm tightening. "He's a casualty. Keep moving." They plunged into the darkness of the stairwell. It was concrete and steel, echoing with the distant, muffled sounds of panic from the main dining room 3 floors below. "What you said," Vance panted as they descended. You work for Israeli intelligence?" "I did," Maya corrected, her voice sharp. "I'm a waitress. Now shut up and run." "But they said I was the target, that I killed their team. It's not true. I mean, it was a passive data sale. I didn't know who the end user was. I didn't know they would use it on allies." "You're a defense contractor, Mr. Vance," Maya said, not breaking stride. "You always know. You just find it profitable to forget." They reached the second-floor landing. Maya paused, listening. Silence. No, not silence. Below them on the ground floor she heard a click, a metallic, precise sound. Someone was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Kyle hadn't sent his whole team up. He had left a rear guard. Maya cursed under her breath. "Back up, slow." They started to creep back up the stairs. A voice called up from the darkness. A new voice. An American one. "No need to run, Mr. Vance. We're here to help." A powerful flashlight beam shot up the stairwell, blinding them. "This is Ori's security. Active shooter protocol. We have the lobby secured. Please come down slowly." Vance let out a huge, shuddering sigh of relief. "Thank God, it's my team, my real team. They must have gotten the alert." He started to walk down, his hands raised. "It's me. It's Johnny Vance." "No," Maya hissed, grabbing his shoulder. "Stop." "What?" "It's my security." "They're too quiet," Maya whispered, her eyes straining against the beam. "The jammers are still up. How did they get an alert?" The flashlight beam settled on Maya, then on Vance. "Come on down, Mr. Vance," the American voice said, "and tell your waitress to drop the weapon." "She's with me," Vance shouted. "She saved my life." "Of course she did," the voice said. And from the darkness, a figure stepped out. It wasn't a man in an Ori's uniform. It was Sarah Jenkins, Vance's COO. She was holding a pistol, and she was pointing it directly at Johnny Vance. "She did a wonderful job," Sarah said, her voice devoid of its earlier panic. "She saved you from Cale. She saved you for me." The twist hung in the air, heavier and colder than the CO2 in the cellar. "Sarah." Vance was completely unmoored. What are you doing?" "I thought Kyle's men had you." "Kyle's men were a blunt instrument, Johnny," Sarah said, walking up the stairs. She was no longer the mousy, terrified executive. Her stance was professional, her grip on the pistol steady. A very useful, very angry, blunt instrument. Behind her, 2 more men in black tactical gear, not Kyle's grey uniforms, emerged from the ground floor. They were holding suppressed rifles. Her team. Vance's mind was catching up, and he was horrified. "You leaked Janus. You were the one shopping it." "Of course I did," Sarah said, as if explaining a simple budget. "Astra Dynamics is a ship you are steering into an iceberg, Johnny. You're too reckless. You're too arrogant. You kept the Janus key on you." "It's biometrically locked to me," Vance protested. "Which is why you needed to be here," Sarah said. "I couldn't just take it from you at the office. Too many cameras, too much security. I needed a crisis. I needed chaos." Maya shifted her weight. The MP Avevan still held at a low ready. "Kyle," she said, her voice a low growl. "You found him. You fed him the intel." "He was surprisingly easy to find, once I knew where to look," Sarah said, smiling at Maya. "Men like Cale, consumed by revenge. They're so predictable. I knew he'd come for Johnny. I knew he'd bring a team. I knew he'd create a scene. He was the perfect distraction. A distraction for what? Vance asked. For this, Sarah said. My team secures the lobby. Kyle's team attacks you upstairs. The police get 100 911 calls about an active shooter at L'Etoile d'Or. In the chaos, my security team comes in to extract the high-value asset. You were going to kidnap me, Vance realized. I was, Sarah agreed. Then Cale's little friend showed up. She glared at Maya. You complicated things, Kestrel. You took out one of his men. You cornered the others in the cellar. You ruined a perfectly good extraction plan. So now what? Maya asked. Now, it's a retrieval, Sarah said. She nodded to her men. Plan B. Take the key. Take the thumb. One of her TAC team members moved forward, holding the same silver data cloning kit Cale's man had. No, Vance said, backing up the stairs closer to Maya. Sarah, you're destroying the company. I'm saving it, Sarah snapped, by selling our prized asset to Vanguard Capital before you burn the whole thing down. Now, give me the key. It's not here, Vance said. What? It's upstairs, Vance said, a desperate, terrible bluff. On the table, in the solarium, with Kyle. Sarah's face tightened. She knew he was lying. You're a terrible liar, Johnny. You wouldn't let it out of your sight. It's in your pocket. It's not, Maya said. Sarah's pistol snapped to Maya. Stay out of this, Waitress. You're a ghost. Stay one. It's in my pocket, Maya said. The stairwell went utterly silent. I took it off him in the cellar, Maya said, her face a perfect mask of calm. When I was checking him for injuries. It's right here. She slowly, very slowly, reached a hand into the pocket of her black apron. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? Maya asked. You know who I am. You set Kyle on us. You must have read the file. Unit 8200. We're trained in asset protection. First rule, secure the asset. The real asset, not the billionaire. The data. It was a perfect, calculated lie. But it was believable. Sarah hesitated. This changed the equation. Her men were trained for extraction, not for a close-quarters fight with an Israeli Khaidon-level operator. Give it to me, Sarah demanded. No, Maya said. Here's what happens. You're going to back down. You're going to walk out the front door with your team. You're going to tell the police you were a private security team that responded and cleared the building. You're going to disappear. And why would I do that? Sarah scoffed. Because Kyle and his team are still upstairs, Maya said, her voice dropping. They are angry, they are heavily armed, and they are trapped in a walk-in freezer by a woman they now despise. But that CO2 tank will run out, and when it does, they're going to come looking for Vance. And for me. And for you. Maya smiled. A cold, sharp expression. You brought a hornet's nest here, Sarah, and you just kicked it. Thump. Crash. A heavy booming sound from 3 floors up. That, Maya said, sounds like they're out of the cellar. Sarah's face went pale. Her plan was collapsing. She had Cale's team of angry Russian spec ops above her, and the entire NYPD outside. She was caught. You... Sarah's voice shook with rage. You bitch! Give me the gun, Sarah, Maya said. No. Sarah's composure snapped. She wasn't a spy. She was a COO. She was in over her head. She raised the pistol, her hand trembling. I'll just kill you both. I'll take the key. She aimed at Vance. Maya moved. She didn't raise the MP7. It was too long, too clumsy for the stairwell. She threw it. She hurled the 7-pound rifle, end over end, directly at Sarah's head. Sarah yelped and ducked, the reflex involuntary. The pistol fired, the shot going wild, the bullet screaming off the concrete wall. But Maya was already on her. She closed the 10-foot distance in 2 bounds. She didn't hit Sarah. She used a classic center-axis relock move. She grabbed Sarah's gun hand with both of her own, turning the weapon away from herself and Vance. She torqued Sarah's wrist, using her own strength against her. There was a dry snap. Sarah shrieked, a high-pitched, agonizing sound. The pistol clattered down the concrete stairs. Maya didn't let go. She slammed Sarah hard against the wall, the back of her head hitting the concrete. Sarah's eyes rolled back, and she went limp, sliding to the steps. The two tactical men raised their rifles. "Don't," Maya said, breathing hard. She was standing over their boss. "It's over. You're not paid enough for this." The two men looked at each other. They looked at Maya, who was breathing like she'd just run a mile, but whose eyes were perfectly, terrifyingly calm. They looked at the unconscious woman at her feet. One of them lowered his rifle, then the other. We're Vanguard Acquisitions," one of them said, as if that explained it. "We're just contractors." "Then acquire your boss and get out of my restaurant," Maya ordered. As they fumbled to pick up Sarah, Maya grabbed Johnny Vance. "We're not done." "What? We're safe." "We're not," Maya said, grabbing the fallen pistol. "Kyle is still upstairs." But Sarah's team is gone. Kyle will leave, right? He'll run from the cops." Maya looked at him with something close to pity. "You still don't get it. He didn't come here for data. He came here for you. This was never about money. It was about revenge. The police won't stop him. He won't let them. He's not leaving until one of you is dead." She started dragging him back up the stairs. "Where are we going?" Vance panicked. "The police are downstairs." "So is Kyle's rear guard," Maya said. "The only way out is up, to the roof." The third floor was a war zone. The main dining room was empty, a sea of overturned tables, shattered Waterford crystal, and abandoned, half-eaten meals. The rich patrons were gone, presumably herded into a secure area by the staff, or having fled down other exits. The air was hazy. The CO2 from the cellar had dissipated, but the smell of cordite and spilled wine was sharp. Where are they?" Vance whispered, clutching Maya's arm. "Hunting," Maya said. She pushed him toward the solarium, the private dining room. "Get in. Barricade the door. Stay away from the glass." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to end the reservation." Maya didn't wait for his reply. She moved, a shadow among shadows. She still had Sarah's pistol, a Glock 17. A good weapon. She had 2 full magazines. She crept past the bar, her feet silent on the plush carpet. She could hear them, Kyle and his 2 remaining men. They weren't in the dining room. They were in the service corridor, moving toward the stairs. They were trying to cut off the escape. Good. Maya slipped back into the kitchen. It was her territory, her nest. She moved past the steel counters, her mind a cold, clear map. She knew every inch of this place. She knew the squeaky floorboard by the fry station. She knew the hot water tap on the dishwasher had a pressure of 200 psi. She heard a boot scuff the tile at the kitchen entrance. "Maya," Kyle's voice echoed in the steel room. "You're just dragging this out. Give me Vance. I'll let you walk. My fight isn't with you. Not anymore." "You lied, Kale," Maya called out, her voice bouncing off the steel. She was hiding behind the massive 12-burner stove. "You used your team's memory to settle a score." "He murdered them," Kyle roared, and a burst of automatic fire ripped through the kitchen, punching holes in a row of hanging copper pots. "He murdered my wife. Elena was on that team, Maya. She was the communications tech. You knew her." Elena. Maya remembered her. Bright, smiling, red hair. A new bride. The memory was a knife twist. "He will pay, Kale, but not like this," Maya called. "He will pay exactly like this." She heard them splitting up. One was moving left, toward the pantry. The other was moving right, toward the dish pit. Kyle was holding the center. Classic pincer movement. The man on the right, Attacker 3, crept past the dish pit. He was moving slow, his rifle up. Maya was waiting. She was crouched by the industrial dishwasher. As he passed, she kicked the heavy, spring-loaded door open. It flew up with a metallic clang, slamming him in the face and chest. He staggered back, disoriented. Maya was on him. She didn't use the gun. She used her hands, a palm-heel strike to the nose, a rigid hand strike to the throat. She grabbed his rifle, twisted it, and used the buttstock to strike him hard across the temple. He went down and did not get up. 2. Boris! Kyle yelled. From the pantry, Attacker 4 opened fire, spraying bullets in her direction. Maya rolled, the bullets sparking off the steel counter where she'd been. She came up in a crouch, raised her pistol, and fired. Twice. Pop, pop. The shots were precise. Center mass. The man in the pantry clutched his chest, his rifle falling, and slumped against a 50-pound bag of flour, which burst, sending a white cloud into the air. 3. It was quiet. Just Maya. And Kyle. "You're fast, Kestrel." Kyle's voice came from the kitchen entrance. He was breathing hard. "Faster than I remember. But you're sentimental. You didn't kill the man on the stairs. You disarmed Boris. You shot Dmitri to wound. You've gone soft." "This isn't Tehran, Kyle. I'm not an executioner." "I am." He stepped out from the doorway. He wasn't holding his rifle. He had discarded it. In his right hand, he held a long, thin, wickedly sharp boning knife. In his left, he held the 8-inch Wüsthof chef's knife, the one she had dropped. "You took my team," Maya said, her pistol steady. He gave the order. "You gave the all clear," Kyle said, advancing slowly. "An eye for an eye, Maya. A life for a life. His life for Elena's. It won't bring her back, Kyle." "No," he said, his pale eyes filling with tears. "But it will be just." He lunged. He was fast, deceptively so. He wasn't a brawler. He was a knife fighter. He slashed with the chef's knife, a wide arc designed to make her flinch, and thrust with the boning knife, a low, gutting motion. Maya fired. The bullet went wide as she was forced to dive back. The Wüsthof knife flashed by her face, close enough to feel the wind. She landed on her back, on the greasy, tiled floor by the fry station. Kyle was on her, his knee pinning her gun arm. The boning knife was raised, pointed at her throat. "This is for Eleanor," he whispered. "No," Maya gasped. "This is for you." Her left hand shot out. It wasn't holding a weapon. It was holding a heavy-bottomed sauté pan, full of congealed, cold grease that had been sitting on the floor. She smashed it, pan and all, into the side of Kyle's head. The clang of steel on bone was sickening. Kyle's eyes unfocused. His body went rigid with shock. Maya didn't hesitate. She brought her knee up, hard, into his groin. He collapsed, howling, the knives clattering to the floor. Maya scrambled away, her chest heaving. She picked up her pistol and aimed it at his head. Kyle was on the floor, curled up, weeping. Not in pain, but in broken, gut-wrenching sobs. The fight was gone. The revenge was gone. All that was left was the man, his wife dead, his team gone, his life over. "Do it," he choked, looking up at her. "Please finish it." Maya looked at him, at the broken man on the dirty kitchen floor. She saw the ghost of the man she'd served with. She saw the victim of Vance's greed. She lowered the gun. "No," she said. "You'll live with it, just like I have to." The sound of sirens, which had been a distant wail, was now a deafening roar. Heavy boots were pounding up the main stairs. NYPD! Hands in the air! Hands in the air! Now!" Maya dropped the pistol. It skidded across the tile. She raised her hands. "In here!" she called out, her voice exhausted. "The asset is secure." The kitchen, which moments before had been a private dueling ground, was suddenly violently public. The first through the door wasn't a cop. It was a tactical shield, a massive black rectangle of reinforced polycarbonate. Behind it, 3 NYPD Emergency Service Unit officers in helmets and heavy body armor fanned out, their rifles' laser sights painting red and green dots across the room. On the floor, hands where I can see them. Maya didn't even flinch. She had already dropped the Glock. It lay uselessly on the tile, halfway between her and Kyle. She unlaced her fingers and slowly raised her hands high above her head. "In here!" she called out, her voice exhausted but clear. "Asset is secure. Threat is neutralized." The tactical terms, coming from a woman in a blood-stained waitress apron, made the lead officer pause. He painted her with his green laser, his eyes hard. Kyle was on the floor, weeping, his fight gone. He was just a man. The officers swarmed him, yanking his arms behind his back, cuffing him with brutal efficiency. "Clear!" one shouted, moving to the pantry to check on Attacker 4. "We got one down, conscious, non-lethal GSWs." "Clear!" another yelled from the dish pit, finding the man she'd taken down with the rifle. "Another one here, unconscious, blunt force trauma." The lead officer, a thick-set sergeant with Sullivan on his vest, finally lowered his rifle, though he kept it pointed at the floor near her. He looked from her to Kyle, to the carnage in the kitchen. "You," he started, his voice rough with disbelief. "You did this?" I had to," Maya said, letting the waitress persona, the fear and the shock, flood back into her voice. They were trying to kill Mr. V. "Sir, in here!" A new voice, not NYPD, a man in a sharp, dark suit with an FBI lapel pin, strode into the kitchen, followed by 2 more agents. He took in the scene in a single, sweeping glance. He saw Kyle. He saw the wounded men. He saw Maya. He didn't speak to her. He didn't even look at her for more than a second. He was focused on the solarium. "Mr. Vance!" the agent called, his voice projecting authority. "Agent Harrison, FBI, we're secure." The door to the solarium, which had been barricaded with a heavy wine cabinet, slid open. Johnny Vance peeked out, his $5,000 suit ripped, his face pale. When he saw the agents, the relief that washed over him was almost orgasmic. "Thank God, he's here!" Vance stumbled out, pointing at Cale. "That's him! That's the leader! They came for me! They tried to... They killed my security!" Agent Harrison put a practiced, comforting hand on Vance's shoulder. "It's all right, sir. You're safe now. My team is going to escort you downstairs." As they guided Vance out, the billionaire was already talking, his voice gaining strength, the narrative already forming. It was an extraction agent, professional. They knew my security. They knew my prototype. It had to be an inside job. Someone on my board, a woman named Sarah Jenkins. He was brilliant. He was painting the picture instantly. He was the victim. He was the hero. He was already controlling the story. And Maya, the woman who had saved his life, was left standing in the kitchen, suddenly irrelevant, a piece of the crime scene to be processed. "All right," Sergeant Sullivan grunted, gesturing with his head. "Let's get her out of here. Paramedics for that arm. Then she's with Detective Miller." Maya sat on the cold, metal steps of the service entrance, in the alley behind the restaurant. The air was sharp and cold, a shocking contrast to the heat and adrenaline of the kitchen. It stung her face, and for a moment she just closed her eyes and breathed. A paramedic had cleaned the long, shallow cut on her forearm. "Got lucky," the young man had said, his hands efficient as he wrapped it. A quarter-inch deeper, and he'd have nicked the artery. You'd have been in a bad way. I'll keep that in mind, Maya murmured. He gave her a cup of sweet, hot tea from a canteen, and the simple, burning warmth of it was the most real thing she'd felt in 11 months. She was alone for a few minutes, a small, still point in a vortex of flashing blue lights and shouting. Cops and agents were everywhere. She watched them bring Cale out. He was in a Tyvek Sarawak suit, his hands cuffed, his head down. He looked empty. A hard-bitten man in a rumpled trench coat approached her. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week, and her existence was personally ruining his night. He flipped open a notepad. Detective Miller, 19th Precinct. Your name is Anna? Maya. Maya Alon, she said, using the name she'd been living under. Right. Maya. And you're a waitress here? Yes, Detective. Miller looked at his notes. He looked at her. He looked at the chaos. So, Maya, the waitress. You just happened to, take on 5 professional mercenaries? I've got 2 men upstairs with non-lethal gunshot wounds, one with a head injury, one with the report just says destroyed knee. And their leader, Cale, was on the floor when my ESU team found you. And you were the only other person standing. With a Glock. They were trying to kill Mr. Vance, Maya said, her voice small, her eyes downcast, clutching the tea like a lifeline. I just reacted. I got lucky. Lucky, Miller repeated, his voice flat. He took a drag from a cigarette. You got lucky 5 separate times. I ran your name, Maya. It's a ghost. No driver's license before a year ago. No social security activity before 11 months. It's like you fell from the sky and started serving. What is this place? $80 appetizers. I moved here. From overseas, she stammered. Right. Overseas. Look, Miller sighed, leaning against the brick wall. He wasn't a bad cop. He was a good cop, and his instincts were screaming, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're Mossad, CIA, or just a very, very motivated waitress. But right now, you're the star witness to an attack on one of the richest men in the world. And you're also a person of interest who just neutralized an entire tactical team. You see my problem? I just want to go home, Maya whispered. Yeah, well, home is going to be a debriefing room at the precinct. For now, don't move. He turned away, speaking into his radio, his voice laced with frustration. Yeah, I got her. The waitress. It's a mess. Maya watched him go. Her cover was blown. The Maya Alon identity was burned. The quiet, boring life she had built to escape the ghosts of Tehran was gone, incinerated in a single night. She was kestrel again, whether she liked it or not. She saw a ripple of motion at the alley's entrance, a phalanx of new men who didn't look like cops or FBI, emerged. They wore identical black suits, earpieces, and had the dead-eyed, watchful look of high-end private security. They were not Ares security. They were better. Much better. They formed a perimeter around a black, armored Escalade that had pulled up. Agent Harrison and Johnny Vance emerged from the restaurant's front entrance. Vance was in a fresh jacket. He looked clean, composed. The mask of the victim was already sliding away, replaced by the cool confidence of the CEO. As he was about to get in the car, he looked down the alley. He saw her. Their eyes met across the 100 feet of pavement. Vance paused, his hand on the car door. He looked at her. The small, insignificant waitress sitting on the back stairs, wrapped in a shock blanket. He took in her wrapped arm, her exhausted posture. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He didn't walk over to thank her. He just gave a short, curt, single nod. It was a nod of acknowledgement, a transaction completed, a thank you for your service, a dismissal. And in that one, tiny, arrogant gesture, Maya felt a new, colder spike of dread than anything Kyle had inspired. He got in the car, the door shut with a heavy, solid thunk. The Escalade pulled away, a silent black shark sliding into the night. Maya stood up, the teacup crushing in her hand. Something was wrong. Her mind, freed from the immediate threat, was finally processing. It was a habit she'd never lost, the after-action hot wash. She did a mental head count. Kyle, captured. Attacker 2, Boris from the kitchen, captured. Attacker 3, Dmitri from the pantry, captured. Attacker 4, the man she'd hit with the wine bucket. She hadn't seen him taken, but he'd been with Kyle in the cellar. He was probably captured too. Wait, Kyle's team. There were 5 men. Kyle plus 4. 1 in the cellar. 1 in the cellar. 1 in the kitchen. 1 in the kitchen. No, that was wrong. Kyle plus 4 men. The man she hit with the wine bucket. The man she wounded in the pantry. The man she knocked out in the dish pit. That was 3. Where was the first one? The man with the shattered knee. The one in the service corridor. The one she had left. The one who had lowered his gun. She scanned the alley. The wounded were being triaged by the main entrance. Kyle and his captured men were in a separate police transport. Sarah Jenkins, looking stunned and broken, was being put in a separate car, but Attacker 1 was not there. Maya walked, her pace quickening, back inside the restaurant. A cop at the service door put his hand up. "Whoa, ma'am, this is still a—" "Detective Miller told me to wait," she snapped, pushing past him with an authority that made him instinctively step aside. She retraced her steps, past the kitchen to the service corridor. It was empty. The crate he'd been resting on was still there, the heavy mop bucket, and on the floor, a small dark smear of drying blood. But the man was gone. He was critically wounded. He couldn't have walked. He hadn't been arrested. The police didn't have him. Maya closed her eyes, her mind replaying the last hour, but filtering it for new data. The paramedics. She'd seen them. A city EMS team, frantic, tending to the panicked patrons in the main lobby. But she had also seen something else. Out of the corner of her eye, a private ambulance, a black and silver model, parked a block down, away from the main chaos. She'd seen 2 men in black EMT uniforms calmly loading a gurney. They hadn't been rushing. They'd been efficient. And the man on the gurney had been covered. Completely. It wasn't a rescue. It was a retrieval. The wounded man. Attacker 1. He was the one who had looked at her, his face pale with pain, and whispered in Russian. On Predatel. He sold us all. Vance's fire. He wasn't just a mercenary. He was a witness. He was the last living cooperative witness who could tie Johnny Vance directly to the Tehran massacre. Kyle and his men were terrorists. They would be buried in a supermax prison, their stories dismissed as vengeful rants. Sarah was a corporate rival. Her testimony would be about Janus, not Tehran. But this man, he was proof. Vance's new security team, the cold-eyed men in the black suits. They hadn't just been there to extract Vance. They were a clean-up crew. Maya finally understood. Vance hadn't just survived. He hadn't just gotten lucky. He had won. He had let Kale and Sarah, 2 of his biggest problems, tear each other apart. He had let Maya, an unknown, deniable asset, do the wet work. She had neutralized Kale. She had stopped Sarah. And in the chaos she had created, Vance's real team had slipped in and eliminated the one, single loose end that could unravel his entire empire. He had used her, from start to finish. The Waitress, Maya was gone. The ghost, Kestrel, was compromised. She was standing in an empty corridor, alone, with no name, no cover, and a new, terrifyingly powerful enemy who now knew exactly who she was. Johnny Vance hated loose ends, and she was the last one. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. Maya thought she was saving a billionaire, but she was really just a tool in a much darker game. Cale's team was in prison. Sarah was facing federal charges. But Johnny Vance, the man responsible for it all, was free. He had his company. He had his Janus key, and he had eliminated every single person who threatened him, except one. He made the same mistake everyone else did. He saw a waitress. He didn't see the Kestrel, and Maya alone may be a ghost, but a Kestrel always hunts. What did you think of Maya's story? Did you see the final twist with Johnny Vance coming? Let me know your favorite part in the comments below. These long-form stories take a massive amount of effort to write and produce, so if you want to support the channel, do me a solid, like this video, share it with a friend who loves a good thriller, and most importantly, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have a new story dropping every single week, and you don't want to miss what happens next.